Your friend and guru sister, this week's affirmation. But until then, I'd like to share just a few thoughts on this week's topic of generosity. Now, these weeks we've been doing different topics all related to the spiritual path, the spiritual quest. And a lot of times they can be a little bit heavy, renunciation, self-discipline, introspection, things that seemingly require a lot of energy from our side. And somehow generosity, at its first glance, maybe doesn't feel that way. No, it's something that we've been taught from a very young age. Oh, it's good to share. You should share your toys. You should share your snacks. You should share whatever else you need to share with your friends, or whatever your parents want you to share. But somehow the truth behind this principle seems to lack. I myself am a teacher, and one of the things we do in our approach to education is we work with what we call life skills. And generosity, in that sense, is one of these life skills. But one of the things that happens when we talk about something, oh, I should be kind, I should be generous, I should do this, this, and this, is a lot of times it comes from the outside in. We're told you should share because sharing is good. And so you think, okay, I'm going to share because sharing is good. But what happens then, it's like easy to share something that maybe you don't like that much. You share your snack, but you're like, oh, I don't even really like carrots or whatever, so I'll share this. But down the line, at some point, you come to a moment when you are asked to share, you're asked to be generous, to give something away, and all of a sudden you don't want to do it. And if that idea is not deeply actually planted inside, in your consciousness, it's very easy for the winds to sweep that away. And that usually happens in our minds through some kind of logic. Oh, you know what, maybe they don't need it. Oh, if I give it away, I won't have enough. But the deeper essence of this teaching is actually much more meaningful to us and actually very prescient on the spiritual path. So one of the things as adults maybe we think of as generosity is giving, away money, away possessions. I'm going to give this percentage of my income to some worthy cause. And this is actually a very beautiful process. I'm not at all knocking that. Swami Kriyananda actually advised all of us he recommended to give to some area of your life, something in the world that you feel they're doing a good thing. They're helping to improve the world. They're helping to bring light into people's lives. And this is very appropriate. But higher than that, though, is the idea of what is behind this energy? Why am I sharing? Why is it important to share? And there's a clue in the words of Jesus Christ. He said, it is more blessed to give than receive. And one of the secret things about that, it's actually almost like a mistranslation. We think of blessed as like, okay, God will bless me from afar and then I'll be blessed and that will be good. Maybe he'll bless me with more things. This is one of those qualities that we like to play with early on in the spiritual path. Playing with energy and saying, oh, if I put out energy, what will I get back? I know my mother once told me when I was young that the basket came around when she was in church one day and all she had was a $20 bill, which even now is a lot of money, but back then it was a lot of money. And she didn't really want to give it, but she knew the spiritual thing was to give it. And so she put it in the basket and the basket went down. She said, okay, Om Swaha, I guess I'm giving that away. Later that same day, she was walking in a mall and on the ground she found a crisp $20 bill. And she looked up, she looked around, and there was no one in sight. And so she took that as a sign that Divine Mother was giving her back the energy as a proof that no good deed goes unrewarded. According to the law of karma, we always come back to zero. So if $20 goes out with non-attachment, then $20 must come back. And so this is one of those games we sometimes play with ourselves when we first get onto the spiritual path. I remember once, as I was older, and perhaps inspired by this story, I had to take the SAT. And for many of you already know, this is the main standardized test in the United States to get into universities. It is akin to the 12th level board exams. And so they're a big deal, and people prepare and they spend money on tuitions and all of these different things. Now, I was lucky. My parents had a little bit more of a cosmic view about these things, and so there wasn't an excessive amount of pressure from their side, but they wanted me to do well. But when I got to the exam, one of the people next to me was visibly shaken, and they were a little bit freaking out. And I came to discover that this was because they had forgotten their calculator. Now, in the SAT, they only measure 2 skills, English and math. And so the calculator is very important. It applies to about half of your exam. And without really thinking about it, I said, okay, have mine. Now, at the time, that didn't seem like that revolutionary of a thing. I knew it was something that I probably shouldn't do because I needed to focus on my own exam, but I gave it to them. And here is where, even in my extremely, relative to now, unaware state, I was a junior in high school, not at the very peak of my spiritual awareness, you might say, I felt the truth of Christ's words. I actually experienced what he was saying, which was, it is more blissful to give than to receive. You feel more joy when you give than when you receive. And in that moment of handing her the calculator, I felt a deep, calm, but very palpable inner joy. And I took the whole exam, and the joy lasted all through the exam, and I felt very good about it. And in fact, I had taken the SAT once prior. This time, my score went up 10 points after having given away the calculator. Now, I don't know which cosmic strings the Divine Mother had to pull in order to give me extra points on that exam, but she did, and it did all work out. But the test was not the major victory there. It was realizing that it actually adds to us when we share with others, when we give of ourselves. And I want to talk a little bit about that highest level now, because it's okay, it's wonderful to give things, and we all should. We should give to people in need, and we should give a calculator when somebody needs one. Whenever someone is in need around us, we should see, is there something we can do to help them? But what is the biggest lack in our world today? What is the single thing that people need most of all? People are deficient these days in love. And that's extraordinarily hard because love actually is the foundation of everything. It is the thing that binds us together. In fact, if you go deep enough, this is what the spiritual path teaches. This is what the masters tell us, that the very foundational element of all of creation is in fact divine love. And so if we want to be generous in the highest sense of the word, if we want to give ourselves completely, we need to be able to give love. And we do every day. Everyone gives love to their family, to their children, their parents, to their friends, to people who maybe they agree with, maybe people that we agree with, where it's a little bit easier to love. But today I want to offer, let's try something a little bit harder. Let's level up on this kind of generosity today. I want us to try consciously, and we're going to practice this in a moment, gearing up for this. I want to practice loving people who it is difficult to love. Because what are we doing when we don't love somebody? What are we doing when we shut our heart off to someone? We say, I don't want to share my love with you. We are affirming that we are different, that we are separate, that you are not me, and therefore I can close my heart to you. Now, on the more subtle level, on the true, deepest level, we're not even capable of that because it's God's love that unites everything. But we can temporarily, thanks to the mirage of Maya, we can convince ourselves. And when we do that, we're actually cutting ourselves off from the source. We're actually doing damage to ourselves. So when we talk about generosity, the highest expression of this, the expression that we as devotees, as disciples of God, need to be able to perfect, to be able to eventually free from this cycle of birth and rebirth, we have to be able to get to the point where we see that is not me. Without loving every single thing, every single person in my life, I will not become free. But the good news is, it is more blissful to give than receive. And so even in the process, we're going to feel joy. We're going to feel that satisfaction. So what I'd like to do now is we're going to chant together a little bit, and it's a very simple chant, and that is by design. We're going to chant Shri Ram Jai Ram. And the reason for that is I want us to, while we're chanting, to really invoke the presence of the divine, of Lord Ram, of that presence that is love incarnate. And that presence lives within each one of us. It lives inside of us. And if we can drill down deep enough into our own consciousness, into our own hearts, we can tap into that. But ironically, one of the best ways to drill into our own heart is to drill out of our heart, to drill from the inside out. And that way we're bringing love from our core, from our essence, out to everyone, including perhaps those people in our lives that it's not so easy to love. So what I'd like to do is we're going to sing this chant, and while we're doing it, let first that association with those who it's easier to love awaken that natural love of the heart inside of you. It can be of the Divine Mother, it can be of Ram, it can be of your mother or your child. It could be of anything that naturally awakens that love. But then we're going to transfer that to be generous with our love, to not keep it for ourselves. No us for and no more, as Yogananda used to say, but for everyone. Our love was destined to reach out, to embrace everything. And so let's practice that now together as we chant. Now, let's just for a few moments sit up straight, close our eyes, use the natural feeling of the heart that has been awakened through this chant. We're going to take that love and feel it expanding. Maybe it starts only as a spark, a small flame within your heart. But feel how the chant has fed it, fueled its flames to grow brighter and bigger. Filling the whole heart, filling the chest, filling the body with that warming love. Feel it expand further, filling the entire room that you're in. Your whole home and everyone in it. Farther out, drenching your society, your neighborhood with that love. Expand it even further, covering your entire city, your state, your nation. All beings therein. Filled with that consciousness. Finally expand it to include the whole world. Feel like there's a string between your heart and every heart on the planet. Now consciously feel that flow of love going out from your heart into the hearts of all mankind. Friends and foes, heroes and villains, police officers, doctors, lawyers, judges, auto drivers, chefs, every single being fed in some small way by the love in your heart. And notice, just for a moment, how you feel in your heart. Have you lost anything? Or do you feel an even stronger warmth there? Even more love rushing in to refill your stores as you share it with the world. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I'll now invite Niyati to share on this week's affirmation and topic.
Thank you, Aryavan. And with that expanded heart and the love in our heart, let's listen to what Swamiji talks about generosity. Most people think of generosity as merely the giving of material benefits to others. More important, however, and much more satisfying is a generous spirit, a willingness to let the other person shine, even if it means being eclipsed oneself, a happiness in his good fortune, even if it means personal loss for oneself, a concern for his safety, even if in an accident one's own property has been destroyed. Generosity means, above all, recognizing that everything we have and are belongs to God alone and is His to dispose of where He will. I was thinking how beautifully Swami Kriyananda has shared the meaning of generosity with all of us, and he is being live example. He lived his entire life with this particular attribute, and most importantly I feel he lived with being a generous spirit. I was wondering how we can contemplate what is it to be a generous spirit. If we think about a spirit is an omnipresence, right? We haven't met our spirit yet. So I was just thinking that how we can contemplate that particular spirit. I was thinking, and it just came to me that who else is omnipresence? We pray to that particular deity day in and day out. In our meditations, in our activities, we invoke the presence of this particular deity, and that's no one but Divine Mother. So I was thinking, if Divine Mother is omnipresent, which she is, what attributes she has? Well, she is kind, she is generous, she's generous in helping us, she's generous in listening to us, she's generous in giving us this beautiful nature around, she's generous to fulfill even our smallest desire. And moreover, she's always generous in giving her love to us. If such is the thing, she would obviously need channels. She would need living channels like us to showcase that particular generosity with one another. And that's how I was thinking that that's what Swamiji meant by a generous spirit. Am I generous today in my kindness? Am I sharing gratitude today? Am I generous in showing my devotion? Am I generous to just smile to someone today? Am I generous to even say thank you for doing this to me? Am I generous to acknowledge? Am I generous to appreciate? Am I generous to listen to somebody who is talking to me? Am I generous in just appreciating the nature around me? Am I generous to the strangers? Am I generous in my desire to help people? Am I generous in showing love? As Aryavan mentioned, showing love to someone whom we just are not able to love. Am I being generous there? And all these things were just coming up more and more and more, where I thought, well, being generous with the materialistic list is much more lesser as compared to being generous by spirit. And I think that's what Yogananda and Swami Kriyananda has set an example for all of us. You know, they're being generous through their spirit, and that particular spirit made them to actually desire to more and more help people to find God. So I was just thinking that, wow, if such is the thing, will I be able to be an instrument to the omnipresent Divine Mother, to be a generous spirit? And I feel and I'm sure that it's certainly a good thing to try. So Aryaman has already given us something for this particular week, that why can't we be generous in our love, especially for the ones whom we don't are loving more, or we are just not wanting to be with them. So let's try this particular thing, but with that expanded heart and invoking the presence of Ram, we thought, why don't we also invoke the presence of Divine Mother, who in her own glory and presence is the epitome of generosity and generosity of spirit. And most importantly, she has no expectation from us. She's not even asking, I want you all to be a generous spirit. She is just giving and giving and giving and giving. Now, tomorrow, day after, this whole life, and perhaps all the incarnations that we have lived, she's just constantly, continuously giving us. So why don't we invoke her presence, open the doors of our heart more wider, invite her to help us to love someone this week, maybe a stranger, maybe also we can love more to the person, to the people around us whom we already love. Let's try doing this. And I would request you to sit upright, close your eyes, and chant along. This chant is a beautiful chant. Door of my heart, open wide, I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, wilt thou come, just for once, come to me. Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? In this case, we are invoking the presence of Divine Mother. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. So let's chant to Divine Mother and invoke her presence in our heart. Wilt thou Opening our doors wide open, feeling the presence of Sri Ram and Divine Mother. With our spine straight, gaze upwards at the point between the eyebrows. Let's affirm together, first loudly. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. Now, little softly, let the gaze be upwards at the point between the eyebrows. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. Feel the vibration behind the words that you are affirming right now. And now we'll whisper. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. Check your gaze. Uplift it at the point between the eyebrows. And let's mentally affirm together. I'm happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. I'm happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. Feel that each word is integrating within us. Good enough to remind us throughout this week that we are the instrument of Divine Mother, instrument of Sri Ram, for them to express their generosity of love to strangers, to people whom we are not good with, or they are not good with us. And let's pray together to Divine Mother. All that I have and am is thine, Divine Mother. Dispose of it as thou wilt. All that I have and am is thine, Divine Mother. Dispose of it as thou wilt. All that I have and am is thine, Divine Mother. Dispose of it as thou wilt. All that I have and am is thine, Divine Mother. Dispose of it as thou wilt. One last time. Let's feel this prayer mentally at the point between our eyebrows. All that I have and am is thine, Divine Mother. Dispose of it as thou wilt. I will request Aryavan to share the blessings and lead us into it.
Thank you, Niyati. Let's just take a moment to invoke the presence of the Masters in our intention as we set forth on this week, determining to give more of ourselves, to see if we can give ourselves fully away so that we can discover what Divine Mother will give us in return, which is to say, selflessly. But even as we pour our hearts out full of all of the love that we have to give, watch Divine Mother refill our hearts even faster. But we have to remember what that source is. The source of this love cannot be only ourselves. It has to come from Divine Mother, from the Masters. So let's end this session with a prayer. Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, friend, beloved God, great Masters, Mahavatar Babaji, Jesus Christ, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, Paramhansa Yogananda, humbly we bow before you all. O Divine Mother, guide us to our freedom through the act of selfless giving. Help us know from experience that when we give ourselves away, all we become is Thee. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Thank you, Niyati, for sharing so beautifully. And we'll see you in the coming days online. Joy to you all.
Alrighty, thank you guys. It was lovely. Ending the session now. Thank you.